problems that we work on are huge and often intractable, but they are the most important problems facing the world.
It's a lonely road, pushing for justice. I think about that Spanish quote, you make the road by walking. Our aunt is Ida Ford, who was one of the 4 women who was killed in El Salvador on December 2nd of 1980.
Ida and Maura were returning to El Salvador. They got into a van to travel back to their residences, but they were intercepted by the Salvadoran National Guard, and subsequently they were taken to a remote area. They were assaulted, and then they were murdered.
We started working in El Salvador in the early 80s after the 4 churchmen were killed. We were approached by their families and by the Maryknoll Order, who said to us basically, we want to push for justice.
An investigation that led to a criminal complaint that was pursued in a trial against 5 Salvadoran National Guardsmen, who were eventually in May of 1984 tried and found guilty of the murder of the 4 women.
No military officers had ever been brought to trial, and certainly not convicted. And it was really important to finally confront this whole issue of military impunity.
A lot of the people that I work with at Human Rights First, people like Michael Posner, just kept at it and added and added until they got to the truth.
When you blow the whistle on violations, that means you are really basically critiquing or criticizing or challenging the power that be. My name is Saadeddin Ibrahim. I am from Egypt. I have been involved in my defense of minorities in my part of the world. My monitoring of elections and documentation of fraud or irregularities. My blowing the whistle on schemes for rulers in my region to groom their children to succeed them. Having done all of that, of course, invariably again puts you in trouble. When I was arrested, incarcerated and put in prison, tried 3 times, and that is when Human Rights First came to my help, stood with me in solidarity, and thanks to them, their solidarity, their support, kept my morale and the family's morale up intact. Organization like Human Rights First stands in the background in my own consciousness. In case I get into dire trouble, I know that somebody will speak on my behalf.
The United States cannot go it alone in the world. And indeed, if we aspire to attract others to our cause, we have to set a very high standard of behavior.
For 30 years, we've been in the middle of trying to persuade governments to stop torturing people. We made the judgment we're going to take the most senior people in the U.S. military, and we're going to try to build a coalition.
Friends from the military, retired officers, asked me to hear what Human Rights First was doing to publicize the importance of our country having a very clear and unequivocal policy against torture.
They carry with them the credibility of these men and women who have given extraordinary service to our country.
Well, our group of retired generals and admirals felt enormous frustration, but individually, we had no training or experience on how to speak out effectively. So Human Rights First very much enabled us to speak out about the military shock, and we were speaking on behalf of those on active service who could not speak out.
It feels like you have a sort of incurable disease that just nobody wants to let you in.
Human Rights First was one of the first organizations to recognize and prioritize as part of our work the human rights of refugees.
The thing that they were really able to work on with us was representation for asylum seekers.
My family are all now refugees. They're all living in refugee camps throughout the Middle East.
I decided to leave, and it was a very hard decision because within 1 week I have to leave everything, my people, my family, my job, and my homeland.
As a conscious person, as an activist, any form of displacement from the battlefield for you is like retreat, and when I say retreat, it's humiliating retreat for you.
After September 11th, the difficulties of getting into the United States, particularly if you're an Arab, are much, much higher.
Human Rights First, the people, they don't know me, regardless you're religious, your ethnic, your color, your sex, they are calling you, support you.
They have worked very aggressively in Congress to get legislation passed, and all legislation is passed by alliances, by coalitions.
So I think inevitably you need outside pressure from groups like ours to kind of push government officials to do the right thing.
I saw that they too were connected with the issues. They were not just people who were sympathetic to me, but people who knew what was going on.
I think that as you work on a case over time, you develop a close relationship with your client, especially in a pro bono case. On the one hand, in some sense, his life was at stake.
We're strong enough. We're powerful enough. We're great enough. We should be able to help these people. And I think it makes us stronger in the long run.
So it's an organization like Human Rights First that is a constant reminder that there's so much injustice in the world that's still to be addressed.
They're willing to speak out on matters of principle, and they're willing to speak out very, very clearly.
Men and women of great character and integrity, who have always put human rights first.
I wasn't just being treated as a client. I was being treated as a human being who just happened to find himself in another part of the world.
They are a wonderful example of civil society at its best.
Organizations like Human Rights First constitute our collective moral memory.
These are not issues of the right or the left. They're issues of human beings who care about other human beings.